What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with my post-fight, Danny Garcia versus Paulie the Magic Man Malignaggi. Now, in my post-fights, if you have not followed my channel, I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, for starters, congrats to Danny Garcia. He was the rightful victor. I thought he won the fight. And let's start with the good. I liked the sportsmanship that I seen at the end. I mean, Danny Garcia could have took the Adrian Broner route and said something or done something distasteful like, yeah, I took Paulie Girl into Barclays. He's from Brooklyn. You know what I mean? He didn't do anything like that. He held his hand up and gave him the veteran treatment. Like, because this is a guy who helped pave the way. You know what I mean? He was a name before you were a name, that kind of thing. So I really like the good sportsmanship. And again, Danny Garcia extends his undefeated streak. There's some controversy behind that because some people thought he should have lost some of his fights like Mauricio Herrera and also against Lamont Peterson. Now, again, I think Danny Garcia clearly won. And what I'm going to do right now is talk about the bad. And I don't want to hear no haters and, oh, you're a hater. You're hating on Danny Garcia. Because if you do the math, check my channel. I've given Danny Garcia props, but I'm a fair person. And I'm not here to sugarcoat and lie to you and say I didn't see something that I seen. Now, I picked Danny Garcia to beat everyone from Eric Morales to Amir Khan, Zab Judah, Lucas Matisse, and I was right. But I got to give my fair assessment. Now, this is the bad and the ugly. I really wasn't impressed with either fighter tonight, with Danny Garcia or Paulie Malignaggi. Let me start off with Paulie. I think there was some residual effect from Paulie Malignaggi being inactive. He's been on a 15, 16-month layoff. His last fight, he got stopped by Showtime Sean Porter. And a lot of casuals were saying, oh, this fight, Showtime knocked him out. Danny Garcia is going to knock him out. Danny Garcia was moving up in weight. Plus, he fights nothing like Showtime Sean Porter, who is very aggressive, reckless also, but he's very aggressive and he's big for the weight class and he has experience at welterweight. So I didn't necessarily see that him getting a stoppage as early as Sean Porter did. You know what I mean? When you're talking about a certified, big, powerful, like non-stop pressure type of welterweight like Sean Porter. So you can't use what he did and had success with Danny Garcia, who's more of a counterpuncher, boxer. I can't even say boxer puncher, but more of a counterpuncher slash brawler or whatever, right? Now, Paulie Malignaggi, like I said, I think there was some residual effect. He just seemed very uncertain. He came out with the really wide stance like he's Adrian Broner or something. And usually the guys that have that wide of a stance are power punchers, right? And he's not known for power. He's known as a light puncher, in fact. So I didn't understand that. He just seemed very hesitant and almost gun shy from round one. Normally, I've seen Paulie Malignaggi with a better jab, a crisp jab, and that kind of thing. And I think even in the Sean Porter fight, which he got knocked out in, he had more energy. You know what I mean? Like his energy level. Look at the Broner fight. That first half was very competitive. And Malignaggi, I don't know if maybe he just had no respect for Adrian Broner or his power or thought he was overrated because he was jumping up 2 weight classes and couldn't hurt him. I don't know. But this version of Paulie, he just seemed like something was off. Wide stance, jab wasn't popping and pumping as good, and he just seemed more in a survival mode, like he had that notion in the back of his mind that I'm in front of my hometown crowd and I don't want to get knocked out. And I didn't really see him going for the gusto in terms of like a game plan, putting something together. And that's my honest opinion of the fight. Now, with Danny Garcia, he won, and I had him winning all but maybe one round. I didn't actually physically score it, but I think Paulie Malignaggi might have won round 2 or something. But he was pretty dominant, but it's how he dominated, right? It wasn't dominant like he was just completely outclassing him. In fact, one thing that I think is concerning is they said the jump up to welterweight was going to benefit Danny Garcia. And he looked slower to me at a new weight. So I was expecting, I think, a bit more. Him to look a little bit crispier with his punches, look really strong. And you look at Sean Porter, like I said earlier, he actually blew Paulie Malignaggi out of the water, and it wasn't even really competitive on that end. But Danny Garcia, this wasn't really competitive, but it wasn't necessarily that Paulie Malignaggi was just doing so much, and that's why it wasn't competitive, if that makes any sense. So basically, to me, what I seen in there from Paulie Malignaggi, he looked pretty shot and he looked like a dead man. And the thing is, when you have a dead man in front of you instead of a live dog who's really putting it together, and I'm not saying Paulie wasn't trying, because he probably was. Paulie has heart. But he was a dead man in terms of his game plan. Nothing was really working. He doesn't have the power to hurt you. And it's going on it's lasting 9 rounds. And it's not even the fact that it's lasting 9 rounds, because you're not going to be able to knock everyone out, and you don't want to look bad in your efforts to knock someone out. I get that, but Danny Garcia wasn't, to me, looking even accurate with his punches, which is a problem. Like, even if you didn't get a knockout, you could have had sharper punches and sharper combinations, which I've seen from Garcia in the past. Like, his combinations look very wild and looping, and I know he's kind of known for those wild looping punches, but he would actually connect some. Even like you look at the Amir Khan fight, even before the knockout, he would occasionally land some singles that looked pretty good, and then Amir Khan would box a bit more. But this, I really, it just didn't look like a clean fight in terms of it didn't look neat and appealing to me. He just looked very wide and slow and looping, and I don't remember Danny Garcia doing this before, but he had a lot of like kind of rabbit punches and like chopping down motion, like a hammer, you know what I mean? Like a gavel hammering motion, where the punches didn't look like just clean bow bow, like I'm turning my punches correctly. So to me, I wasn't really impressed with Danny Garcia, even though he won, and he convincingly won. I just thought I would see a sharper version of Danny Garcia. I think he needs to work on a jab. He used it in very few spots, but also the accuracy is killing me. If you count how many shots he misses, and I know he's had that in the past, but he's also looked better when he's being offensive, when he is getting shots off. But to me, it was a little bit far and few in between, and I just ultimately, I got to be honest, I just wasn't impressed with what I seen for Danny Garcia. And each time you have a guy, like a new player in the division, I always kind of foreshadow a bit, like, oh, what matches would be good. And that version of Danny Garcia, who, I'm not going to say he struggled, because he didn't really struggle. He was clearly winning the rounds, but he didn't look exceptional with a guy who didn't really have a game plan or the power to, like, you have to be cautious to stop you. It's just, like I said, more or less a dead man. So when I'm thinking about that, I'm like, I don't know who Danny Garcia beats at 147 looking like that. If Maidana loses weight and gets back in shape and stuff like that, that's a difficult fight. Keith Thurman, Kell Brook, these are difficult fights. Even a Timothy Bradley, because Bradley can at least brawl, but he knows how to box better. And a guy who's athletic and moving, because as Paulie, there were some spots where you could tell easily what style Danny Garcia doesn't like, and it's that type of style. If you're a boxer, mover, and you're like that Nat type of style where you pot shot him and then move out of the way, it's just not bad. And based on that performance, I've known this for a while, but it was talked about at one point, I have no interest in watching Danny Garcia versus Floyd Mayweather, because I would bet money, like large sums of money, if anybody wants to bet, that Danny Garcia will lose his undefeated record to Floyd Mayweather. Just that stylistically is a horrible, horrible matchup for him. And again, some of the other guys that are strong and can box a bit, like the Keith Thurmans and Kell Brooks, those aren't good matchups for him either, because they're not going to, like, Floyd's more cat-like and elusive, and he's going to pot shot you to death, and he's sharp and accurate, which Danny Garcia is not accurate, right? So Danny Garcia trying to corner Floyd I think he would end up looking foolish. But then you get a boxer puncher like Brook or Keith Thurman, and I see those guys, especially if they're landing crisp counter shots, that'll be a problem for him, especially like Keith Thurman when he incorporates some movement into it. It just, I don't know. I don't know where Danny Garcia goes. I expected a little bit more. Like, again, we're talking about a guy on a long layoff, a guy who's coming up in weight. And I know beforehand I said some people are sleeping on Paulie Malignaggi, but the version of Paulie Malignaggi that I seen did not look like, he looked like he was shot and shop worn and uncertain and unconfident. Prime, like a Paulie Malignaggi that fought Pablo Cesar Cano or Adrian Broner, I thought could provide more. But based on the Paulie that I seen that actually showed up, I think Danny Garcia could have looked like, took a step back and put some punches together, looked a bit sharper. That's my honest opinion. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like my video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.